Before we get started, I want to go ahead and say that this is a repost, which means the opening is not going to make much sense. But if you were here when I first started the channel, you will understand why. Anyway, on with the video. It has taken me 9 years to put this experience on paper. 9 years of deciding whether this happened or not, or whether I would be considered a nut job for telling it. It was not until I began narrating these near-death experiences that I realized what I experienced was true. The future things that God, Jesus, and even my dead father showed me have made me a better person along the way. However, it was not always like this. There was a time when I despised the very thought of God and his way of doing things. That is, until that day, 9 years ago. September 7th, 2012, started like any other regular day. I woke up ready for another boring day of work. The only saving grace was that I had my first date in what seemed like years. Her name was Teresa, and from the moment that I met her, I knew that she was the one. I had never believed in soulmates or anything like that due to my lack of religion, but something deep down told me she was the one. After I got off of work, I called Teresa to tell her that I was headed home to change and would see her at 6:30 for our date that night. I wish that I had known what was going to happen. I would have gone right to her house instead of mine, but the universe and God had other plans for me. After getting home and getting changed, I walked out of my apartment and to my car and took off heading towards her place. I called to let her know I was on the way and could not wait to see her. We continued talking on the phone as I updated her on my status. I remember laughing with her at a joke that she had told, and then suddenly, I was in a black void. I could not see or hear anything. There was nothing. I am not sure how long I wandered around this darkness. I began to panic, but eventually, I gave up. I sat down and began to cry, wondering how long I would be stuck here and whether I would ever get to see Teresa again. I waited and waited and waited for what seemed like an eternity. Finally, with grief and panic in my voice, I screamed out to God for help. The blackness suddenly faded away and was replaced by brightness, a brightness so full of love that it overwhelmed me. There, standing before me, was my dad, who had taken his own life 3 years earlier. Dad and I were never close, but standing here in front of him, I could feel the love that he had for me. Even though I was seeing him again for the first time in 3 years, I did not know how to return that love. I still resented him for leaving us. Plus, there was the fact that I was stunned to see him here. I, of course, had questions for him because even though I wasn't religious, I knew that if you killed yourself, you were condemned to hell. I asked him how he was here, standing before me. He told me that every soul goes to heaven, but they must first go through their own personal hell. What do you mean, personal hell? I asked. I then asked him if that was the darkness that I had experienced. He told me no, that wasn't my personal hell, that I would know what it was when I experienced it. Not being satisfied, I again pressed him. What do you mean? I asked him what all happens in my personal hell. His words scared me. He said that for every hurtful word that I muttered or said to another human being, every sinful deed that I did would be magnified by thousands. That the people I hurt in life, I would feel that hurt. I told him I didn't want to go through that. He told me that everyone must go through it before they are allowed to move on. Before I could protest further, the brightness and love faded away, and I was there in my own personal hell, a hell that I had created. I wish that I could tell those of you listening that I was a perfect person and that my experience in my own hell was a cakewalk. I was not a perfect person. I'm still not, and hell is not a cakewalk. I was a jerk to everyone around me. I became a lot worse when my dad took his own life. I experienced the hurtful words that I had said to my mom and the blame that I placed on her for his death. I was put through the same stuff I did to my sisters growing up, and how I would pick on them and beat them up just because I could. Even strangers that I would troll on the internet for fun. I felt everything. I never realized how much words hurt until they were cutting into my soul. Then came the curses that I placed on my dad after he killed himself. How I swore that I would never forgive him, and that I hoped he burned in hell for all of eternity. My soul experienced a burning sensation so severe, it felt like I had been dropped into the sun. The worst part, though, was when I experienced the loneliness of not believing in God, a world devoid of anything. This was the blackness that I had been in before I called out to God for help. In a sense, my dad had lied to me. I don't know how long I was in my own personal hell, but by the time I returned to the brightness, I was crying uncontrollably. The amount of hurt that I had put people through had completely broken me. My dad was there when I came out and immediately hugged me, as if to let me know everything was going to be okay. I asked him where he was when I needed him, where he was when he decided to take his own life, and why he left us. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and apologized. He explained the hurt that he had been going through and didn't know how to get out of it. Seeing my dad cry, I knew it was time to finally forgive him, that the hatred I had for him after hearing his apology was gone. After years of hate, I finally muttered the words, "I forgive you." My soul was snatched forward toward what can only be described as the most beautiful place that I have ever seen. I saw the pearly gates. I saw in the distance what I can only describe as a crystal castle surrounded by light. I stood amazed at how beautiful heaven truly was. I was at peace and knew that I wanted to stay. Then, I heard someone calling my name from the left, and as I turned my head, I saw Jesus. He had bluish-green eyes, brownish curly hair, and a long brownish beard. He wore white. It reminded me of what people wear when they first get baptized. The only feelings that I had around him were those of joy and peace and love. Jesus didn't speak, but I could hear him telling me that I couldn't stay, that his Father had plans for me. I was still amazed that this person, that I didn't believe in, even knew who I was, much less that he had plans for me. I asked him what plans. Jesus showed me everything that God had laid out for me. I saw myself becoming a better person in life. I saw that I would marry Teresa, and that we would have 2 beautiful girls together. I was even given their names. As the images faded and I returned to where I was, standing next to Jesus, he told me once again that I could not stay and that it was time to go. He told me that he would be waiting to see me again and that he loved me. I awoke in the hospital with Teresa holding my hand. When I asked her what happened, she told me that I had been in a coma for 2 weeks and that while we were talking on the phone, she heard me say some really bad words, and then she heard a loud crash. A drunk driver had jumped the median and slammed into my car head-on. The impact forced the steering wheel into my chest, crushing multiple ribs and my sternum. She held my hand and cried as she told me about the awful gurgling sound that I made as I took my last breath. The doctors are unsure of how I lived through it, considering the amount of damage done. But I knew how I made it. God was looking out for me that day. Me, an atheist that didn't believe in God, that hated everything that he stood for and had taken from me. The doctors were able to rebuild my sternum and my ribs. Teresa stayed by my side throughout 13 surgeries and recoveries. I imagined that I wasn't the greatest person to be around during those times. I did get better, though I still experience breathing issues. One commenter even pointed out in one video that I narrated that I breathed too much. All I will say is that a titanium sternum doesn't allow you to breathe normally. Teresa and I did end up getting married. I wasn't about to let someone like her go. We welcomed our first daughter in 2018, and during the pandemic, we welcomed our second baby girl. I know a lot of people are going to say that this did not happen, and quite truthfully, I don't care whether anyone believes it or not. I know what I experienced. My wife knows what I experienced, and God knows what I experienced. I know the issues that I still experience with breathing from the multiple surgeries it took to repair my chest cavity. There are 3 things I can tell you right now. Heaven does exist, God exists, and I am truly looking forward to the day that I get to see my dad and to talk to Jesus again. I have included the original question and answer in this one, though I made one minor change to one of the answers. As previously stated, this is a repost of my own NDE. Since I posted it, I have received a multitude of questions regarding exactly what happened. I have received questions on why I talk the way that I do, even after explaining everything in this NDE. To finally put this to bed, I'm going to answer all of the questions that I received throughout the time this NDE has been up until I reposted it to fix audio issues. Question 1. What is heaven like? Heaven is indescribably beautiful. You could think about the most beautiful thing on the planet that you have ever seen, whether that be a painting, a fellow human, or anything of that nature. Multiply it by 1 billion, and you still wouldn't come close to the beauty of heaven. Question 2. You admitted to being a non-believer, so why were you chosen instead of me to receive this blessing? I have no idea. Perhaps God and my dad worked out some sort of deal. I truly do not know. I also wouldn't call having a titanium sternum a blessing. I constantly live in pain. Question 3. How do you know this was real and not just your brain dying? I have taken every single substance known to man. I have had acid trips. I have had DMT trips. I have had other trips. None of them brought anything like this on. When people bring this up, I usually ask them to explain how it is. I managed to be dead for longer than 20 minutes and still come back to life. Question 4. Other than your 2 children and wife, did Jesus show you any more of the future? No, I was not granted the ability to see any future wars or anything other than what he wanted me to see. I did not come back with powers or the ability to read minds or anything like that. Question 5. Were his eyes the color that you say they were? Why weren't they brown like most of the people from the Middle East? Yes, his eyes were that color. I do not know why they were bluish green. Perhaps that is the color of his soul. I don't know. Question 6. Are you a robot? My secret is out. You got me. I'm a robot sent to destroy all humans. On a more serious note, many of you are aware of my current health battle. Sadly, I have had to turn to AI to tell these experiences. So, while I'm not personally a robot, I am using AI to tell these experiences. The electrolarynx makes me sound like a robot, though. Question 7. How long do you think you were in the darkness? I truly do not know. Time is non-existent in heaven. I could say 1,000 years, but at the end of the day, I have no clue. Question 8. I don't believe this happened. I believe you are lying. Can you prove it? Asking me to prove whether I visited heaven is like asking me to do something that even scientists cannot do, and that is to prove the existence of God. You'll just have to trust me when I say that yes, heaven is 100% real. Question 9. It's impossible to be dead for over 20 minutes. You're lying. Where is your question? Since there wasn't one, I will say this. God has control over life and death. Lazarus was dead for 4 days when he was brought back to life. If God can bring someone back from the dead after 4 days, don't you think he can bring someone back after 20+ minutes? Question 10. Why are you using AI now for your narrations? I answered this above. Because of issues regarding my throat, I do not wish to use that word again, so use your imagination on what I am talking about. If you guys have any further questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. If you're going to insult me or anyone else, don't do it. It leads down a road you don't want to go down. When I tell you, what I went through in my life review was hellish, I wasn't joking. See you next video.